Welcome to the Color of Success podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Stephanie J. Wong. Today, we have Ria Patag, who is an 18-year-old entrepreneur, podcast host, and fitness influencer. With her extensive weightlifting and nutrition experience, she focuses on content creation to help others learn about fitness. Notably, she founded an activewear brand called Bolt Active. Bolt's unapologetic and bold branding is aimed to help young women feel represented and welcome in the fitness space in a male-dominated industry. Hi, Ria. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for reaching out. It was really sweet and to hear that you were interested in being on the show. And I'm excited to talk about fitness and maybe how people can get back into it given the pandemic. But I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about your journey being a fitness influencer and going on this career path.
Yeah, I would love to share that. So my fitness journey has been on and off for about 4.5 years. And when I first touched a barbell, I literally knew nothing about fitness, nothing. I had no previous experience even with sports or anything. But I knew that if I wanted to reach my physique goals and all that stuff, that I would have to get into it. And so, again, being on and off with consistency. But throughout the years, I've learned a lot, and I obviously still have a lot more to go. And when the pandemic hit, I was kind of faced with this abundant amount of time on my hands.
Like most of us. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I thought to myself, I could either stay doing the same thing that I've been doing, kind of not really caring about my diet as much, not being very active, or I could use this time wisely and try to get back in the habit of working out consistently and really focusing on my goals, since I did have that time and really didn't have any excuses besides laziness. And so that's when I started being consistent. I've been consistent with fitness ever since, and I want to help other people feel the same confidence and feel the same empowerment as I do when I'm in the gym, and just help people better themselves, not even just for physique, but their overall health and their overall goals.
Absolutely. And I think the pandemic has inspired a lot of people to follow a dream or find their passion. And so, one of the things that you talked about was being a Filipinx Gen Zer. And so how do you think those demographics have impacted your decisions or your journey in fitness?
Yeah, so those two groups definitely I resonate a lot with, and it's a big part of my identity, especially being Filipina, growing up in a predominantly white community and kind of feeling like a sore thumb and like I didn't really fit in. And it's very different, the culture, wanting to be more like everyone else, quote unquote, wanting to be more American. And growing up with that, I still had the same values that were pushed on me as an Asian American, such as, striving to do better in school, striving to be the best as possible. And the kind of career path that I took is obviously not very traditional in the Asian American space, at least for my experience growing up raised by a first-gen immigrant. And so a traditional career such as nursing, lawyer, those types of traditional careers were very pushed on to me even at a young age. And so I was kind of stepping out of the status quo when I found a career in fitness that I wanted to do. And obviously, my parents weren't the most happy, but there obviously is that unconditional love and support from your family. And it was hard to come to terms with the fact that to other Filipinas, especially like my titas, they would kind of look down on that. But it's very difficult to not have the support that you want sometimes.
How did you break the news to them? How did you break the news that, hey, this is what I'm going to do instead of all the things and all meeting those expectations that they put on you for so many years?
Yeah, so college in itself is a big thing. It was almost like, not, are you going to college? It was like, what are you studying? And for me, I went into it thinking that I didn't have an option to not go to college. It was just kind of a default in a way. So after my first semester, I was studying psychology and I totally felt so out of place. I obviously felt like this was not the right thing for me to do. It just wasn't the right path for me personally.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I realized that, I had to obviously break the news to my parents, explaining why I made the decision, the kind of backup, quote unquote, plan that I was going to do instead of college. And there was this idea of having an education, needing an education. And it obviously put a strain on our relationship for a couple of months. But from seeing my productivity and how passionate about my work and what I'm doing, I think that's a huge part of them slowly accepting it. I still obviously get you still should go back to school once in a while, but I think that's something that I just accepted will always be a thing that they want me to do, just because of A, the culture, and B, them wanting the best for me, and to my parents, job security is the best for me.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question because obviously one of the number one most popular jobs among your generation and even the up and comer youngins, I would call it. I'm a late millennial, so I guess I can show my age a little bit. But is a YouTuber, right? And so there's a lot. It's a huge market, and at the same time, it's highly competitive. So how do you kind of talk to your parents about financials that you can eat, that you're able to sustain yourself?
Yeah, it is a little bit scary because when you're working from home, you're not getting consistent paychecks and there's not this solid, I'm getting X amount of money every month. It could be up one month, down another, which is kind of a little scary. But at the same time, I think being myself and being the truest me out there with the content I put out, I think that really resonates with a lot of people. And as long as I'm being authentic, I get the right people following my content and being inspired by my content. And so at first I was very scared about that fact, just, obviously not being sure if I'm going to get a solid amount of money that month or whatever the case may be. But I think being true to yourself and not wanting to give up your morals, your values for what you're doing, for your content, is a big thing that I'm doing just so I resonate with the right people and the right people would want to support me.
And you mentioned consistency. So during the pandemic, how are you able to maintain that consistency with your fitness regimen and your work on your mental health?
Right. It obviously was not easy. And especially when you're doing home workouts compared to gym workouts, you could be in the middle of a workout and your bed could be right there.
Yeah.
So that was the biggest thing for me, is not being a home workout person, but obviously being forced into it. And I started to look at it as a challenge almost, of following X amount of days. If I can just take it day by day of focusing on today, doing a workout that day and just getting it over with, getting it done, and not worrying about the next few months. I think that's a really big thing that helped me with my consistency, just because it doesn't seem as intense and it doesn't seem as something you can't do when you're taking it day by day. And that's a big thing that I did. I also did some outdoor workouts, which was difficult when it was hot, but when you're stuck inside all day, you're getting that fresh air, and that also helped me a lot. Even if it's just a walk, at least you're getting that fresh air and seeing new things, change of scenery. So that helped me a lot too. But consistency was obviously a big thing that I struggled with.
So, what motivated you or motivates you? Because you mentioned your ideal body shape, body physique is what you said.
Right.
So, what continues to motivate you when you feel like I'd rather watch that Netflix show than go outside for a walk?
Obviously, I will probably never be happy with my physique. And for a lot of people, that's what they're getting into the gym for and why they want to start their fitness journey. Some sort of body insecurity or something like that. And so, obviously, looking up to different people who I admire really motivates me. But I would say dedication is what gets me going every day, and just the act of pushing yourself and wanting to better yourself overall rather than just an objective goal of a goal body or a dream body. I think that really drives me way more than an objective goal could ever, because of my mindset, I guess, in a way, just knowing that I can push myself harder and I could work better. And just knowing your potential is out there and you just have to strive for it. So I think that's the biggest thing that motivates me, is just knowing that I have a lot of potential and there's so much out there that I haven't done yet. And it would be really cool to just strive for the best and be better every single day.
What has been a challenge? Because I think as you start up this venture, this endeavor, there are always going to be things that come up. And so, what has been your biggest challenge with starting the business, but also being so involved in the fitness industry?
I think time management has been a big thing, because having a social life is obviously important to me, as I am a college age student, but trying to balance social life, trying to balance work, trying to balance goals, and also family and friends, it's really difficult. It feels like I have a lot on my plate. And I think time management has been my biggest struggle, just because there's many different ways that people time manage. For example, what works for someone else may not work for me. And so I think just playing around with routine, playing around with habits and how I go about my day is what I'm working on right now. Um, and when it comes to fitness and working out, I found that something that helped me a lot, even when I'm like scrambled and feel like I don't have time, is setting a specific date. I'm going to do a workout right after work, say, or, first thing in the morning. That's a huge tip that I would give someone struggling with consistency, because then it's set in stone that you're going to do it right then and there. And that's what helps me make sure I get it out of the way. And then I can move on to other priorities, whether that be work, hanging out with friends, hanging out with family. But yeah, I would say time management and trying to manage a social life right now is a big struggle.
And, as the pandemic hit, there were already people that were very self-conscious about their bodies, and body positivity is something that I continue to encourage on the show.
Right.
Um, People may have turned to food for comfort, and obviously there was a lot more streaming. There's a lot more people were confined indoors, and like you said,
Right.
they can't go to the gym. So what advice would you give people to jumpstart their exercise regimen again, or even take that first step?
Yeah. So once you're starting from a sedentary, like day one, it can be very easy to fall in the hack of, I'm going to cut everything out and I'm going to do this extreme program. And while it may seem like a good way to get fast results, I would not recommend it just because it's not very sustainable. I would say for someone who's a beginner or just wants to get back in the flow of things, you would definitely want to do a slow progression and work your way up. So that way you can still enjoy your life and not look at your program or your exercise as a punishment in a weird way. And so instead of cutting everything out and, looking at diet as a bad thing, you could cut one thing out at a time and slowly do a walk every day. You could go from doing a walk every day to slowly getting back into the gym, and just little slow steps, because it really is a, a lifestyle and not just, like a 30-day challenge. And so that's my biggest recommendation, is to take things slow. It may be counterproductive or counterintuitive, but it definitely is my biggest tip. So that way you can sustain those progress.
And what are some superfoods or things that you would encourage people to incorporate in their diets? And I want to clarify, because diets don't necessarily mean you have to stop eating certain things or whatnot, or in the goal of losing weight per se, but more so, how do you maintain your health, like you mentioned?
Yeah. So a huge part of fitness is obviously diet, and a huge part of reaching your body goals is diet. And so a lot of people have many different goals, and that would be reflected in what your diet wants to look like. I would say, since people have many different goals, then the answer would be very different. But obviously, you want to make sure you're getting your protein in. You want to carb up. A lot of people are scared of carbs these days with keto and whatnot, but carbs give you energy. So protein and carb up, and obviously fats, like healthy fats, avocados, olive oil, stuff like that. They're not anything to be afraid of. Fats are good for hormonal health. So you want to make sure your diet is well-rounded, balanced, and enjoy a cookie once in a while, but make sure you're getting those fruits and vegetables in, all those micronutrients as well.
And among the Asian American community, there are quite a few that are lactose intolerant. In fact, I'm on a FODMAP diet, not for my weight, but for my health, because I had some severe stomach issues in 2020. So I've cut dairy out and eat vegan cheese and things like that. But I mean, what do you feel about dairy? Like, where does that fit into people's overall health and diet?
Honestly, I super relate to lactose. It's like me and lactose do not work well together. And it's very unfortunate, because dairy, it feels
It's
like
delicious.
yeah, in everything. And so it's hard to cut it out completely. I would say at least minimizing it, you may feel a difference in your health, because even after minimizing it, I see a difference in my skin and I feel a lot better. But again, it is hard to cut it out completely. And there's a lot of vegan alternatives, like you said, for vegan cheese. There's actually a lot more than I would have ever thought of. You just have to find the right ones that work well for you and work well for your lifestyle. A lot of protein supplements have whey. And so that is something that I found out the hard way that I didn't work well with.
Mm-hmm.
They have
That's a good point.
Yeah, they have vegan protein powders, and those are a little bit more expensive, but you might want to give those a shot. I personally don't like the taste of them, and they also are a little bit more expensive. So there's something called protein isolates, and that's whey protein, but it's processed more. So that way there's no lactose, but there still is dairy in it. I would say if you're looking to get your protein in easier and you're struggling with lactose intolerance, that might be something you want to try out.
So tell me a little bit more about you mentioned you'll never be satisfied with where your body is at. And I feel like that resonates with so many people. What do you say to yourself when maybe you're going through one of those days where you're like, I don't like my body as much as yesterday or the day before?
Yeah, it's really difficult, because obviously some days are bad body image days and some days are more confident days. And the bad body image days, I'm not going to lie, they are terrible. And there's not much that I can do to get myself out of that funk. But besides getting myself in the gym, whether I want to be there or not, and still trying to put in the work rather than complain, I guess. I think that helps me a lot, is just knowing that I'm still putting in the work and I'm still trying my best. And our best may not be the same one day as it did the other day, but it's still your best. And I think humans just as a whole are being very hard on ourselves. Obviously, once you hit a goal, you're going to want to set a new goal. And that's good because it means we're always striving to be better. But at the same time, you have to reflect and see how far you've come. So I think it's a balance of the two, wanting to be better and wanting to strive for better, but also looking at your accomplishments and being proud of that.
So tell me about Bolt Active, because that's really exciting. You have your own fashion line at 18 years old. What inspired it? And tell us how it's differentiated than others in the market.
Yeah. So I was doing social media marketing services for other businesses. And after doing that for some time, I really enjoyed doing social media management and, knew how to hack the algorithm and all that stuff. But I felt like I could apply it to my own business. And so I always wanted to do activewear, just something that I thought would be cool. So I started thinking about my market and their pain points. And so as a young woman, I started thinking about how I felt in the gym first starting off. You feel intimidated. You feel like it's not your place to be just because the gym is so associated with like bodybuilder men. And it seems like that's not where you're supposed to be. It seems like you're just uncomfortable. And especially when the world of sexual harassment too, that doesn't make it any easier. Yeah. So for young women, it's really hard to get in the gym. It's really intimidating for anyone to get in the gym first starting off. But I felt for young women, it was a very hard thing to get into lifting weights even and not knowing what to do. And so I started thinking about my market and that pain point of theirs. And I started thinking, how can I help other young women and other people who felt the same way as I did feel more empowered and feel more confident and feel like the gym is a place that they belong to be at, and they also have the right to be there.
Safe space.
Absolutely. And the way that I wanted to go about that was obviously my branding, because, objectively, the clothes look like they're cute sets, but, you have to really stand out. And so the way that I did it was my branding in the super female empowerment way, but not in like the traditional pink and feminism type way, just in the way that you're allowed to be here, you're allowed to take up space, and just stop trying to shrink yourself to appeal to others. That's really what I want to do with Bolt, and just help other young women feel empowered, feel uplifted, because the fitness industry super toxic at times. Just like the verbiage, the language of wanting to exploit like young women and exploit insecurities. I hated that. So I want to change that and change the conversation.
How do you deal with sexual harassment? I don't know if that's actually happened to you, but if you can speak on that, because I think it happens not only in the fitness industry, but there's covert sexism. There's all sorts of things that happen in the workplace.
Yeah, it's so unfortunate. And it's sad that we have to kind of think about this and find ways to protect ourselves when in reality it shouldn't be happening at all. And I have experienced it. At first, I thought women getting approached at the gym was just something that happened occasionally, even rarely, because I just didn't think it was that bad. But I have been approached by people, even like twice my age, and it kind of is very frustrating because you just want to be there and not talk to anyone and not get approached by scary men who you don't know, they might follow you to your car or something.
Yeah.
And so I'd say, especially if you're like doing a night workout, bring pepper spray, because you never know. And when it comes to being approached and being physically talked to, just be very blunt. That's the way I go about it. Very dry and cutthroat with your responses, because they will most likely leave you alone in that case. And it's unfortunate, but
what do you actually say to them?
So I've had a few instances, but sometimes obviously when you're caught off guard, you don't really know like what to say. And so it's a fine line between not wanting to like anger them, but also drawing boundaries of this is not okay. And something that works is saying that unfortunately this I hate that we have to use this line, but I have a boyfriend, like that sometimes strays them away. If you get people looking at you, sometimes the best thing to do is like alert the gym staff and just let them know that this is something that's going on. So that way they can keep an eye out for the person, and they could probably kick them out if they continue to bother you. But yeah, that's been a big thing, is alerting gym staff for me.
Definitely. Well, thanks for sharing that, because I think setting boundaries is just so important, and putting it out there when you feel uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So where are you hoping to take your career in 5 years, or even in the immediate future? Because it seems so bright. There's so many avenues that you're exploring. So I'm wondering if you can kind of tell us a little bit more about what's in store for your business.
Yeah, so right now I'm really focusing on just getting my name out there and building my personal brand and my actual brand, and organically marketing by, creating content and all that stuff. That's my biggest focus at the moment. And I'm really excited to see what opportunities come my way, whether that be personal training maybe, or writing a book maybe. I don't know. There's a lot of cool things that I definitely want to do, and I do love a new project. But yeah, right now I'm focusing on Bolt and growing it and helping as many people as I can. I think that is my biggest priority, is just trying to resonate with people and trying to uplift people, bring them to a place of confidence, give advice, and even just be a helping hand, and kind of treat people that I even never met as my friends. That's my goal at the moment.
Within boundaries.
Yes, yes.
For sure. And where can people learn more or purchase your line?
Yeah, so we have not launched again. We're going to do a separate product launch in August. So the website's not up, but if you are listening to this by the time it is up, the website's boltactive.com, BOLTACTIVE.com. But if you want to follow me and see what I'm up to, see what kind of workouts, see what I'm doing with life, you can check me out on Instagram. So that's going to be Ria Patag, just RAAPATAG.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm so excited to see the launch, and I'm sure there's going to be so many people who resonate with your message, because we really need positivity and female empowerment in this world.
We
Is
really
there
do.
Absolutely. Is there any message that you would like to share, kind of a video message to women out there at this moment?
I would say the biggest thing is do not be afraid to grow. And I mean that physically and mentally. When it comes to growth, you want to really step outside of your comfort zone. And this is, advice I even need to take. People leaving, things changing, these are growing pains, and it's okay to feel them out, but just know that you are constantly evolving, you are constantly growing, and don't be afraid to plant those seeds. If there's something that you've been wanting to do for some time, just go for it. And worst thing that can happen is you fail, but you learn from it. So I would say that's the biggest thing, is growth is a huge thing. Don't be scared of it. Don't be scared of change. Change is good, and change will help you in the long term. So I think that's my biggest message.
And I think that's really parallel, because you reached out to me, and we're not afraid to ask, right? And I think that's really important. In the first step in a lot of people's journey is asking, because people can either say no, ignore you, but hey, people could also say yes, and open up all these opportunities or meet new people that never would have crossed paths.
Mm-hmm. It's super important to have the mindset of not what if, but what if I didn't? And just get rid of that fear of failure and get rid of that fear of rejection, and rather be inspired by what could happen and so many opportunities of the positives that you're scared of and what's on the other side of fear.
Ria, those are wise words. I'm super impressed by you and will continue to be following your journey and cheering for you. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening to the Color Success Podcast. Listen, like, subscribe on all major streaming platforms, YouTube, IG, and if you want exclusive content, you can join our Patreon. All links can be found at colorofsuccesspodcast.com.